School District.
What is that, Mr. Davis?
I'm looking for some good news, that's all.
You just want some good news. We're making progress, I tell you. Oh, I see we're on live
We're
too.
live.
Oh,
Okay, fantastic. Okay, this is the Government Relations Committee meeting. We're gonna call ourselves into session. We welcome anyone who is listening from the public, and welcome. The first order of business is we're gonna have a roll call. Lawrence, will you call the roll, please?
I can. So we have Dr. Yeager,
Here.
Mr. Davis,
Here.
Dr. Knox,
Here.
Dr. Thomas,
Muted.
Yeah, she's muted. We got one more board member that.
Mr. Stevens. Oh,
Yeah.
Is that him on the phone?
right. I thought that was his
I'm
number
here.
popped up.
I'm here.
Oh,
Mr. Stevens, yeah.
okay. Welcome, Antoine. Okay, so we've got, the first thing to do is to amend or adopt the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I moved to.
Trish gave a
adopt.
motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
John Knox seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye or giving us a little wave of the robotic hand that's on the Zoom.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. How do
You
I
don't
do
know?
that?
It's at the bottom. There you go. At the very bottom. You got
Oh, cool.
yeah, there you go. Good way to vote.
I never knew that was there before.
Antoine, do you see it?
He doesn't get to, does he
I'm
have
actually
that?
on the phone.
Oh, he's on his phone. He may not, yeah. Okay. We didn't
Agenda.
include the minutes of the last meeting. So we're going to approve them at the next meeting. So we're approved with everybody's permission. The next meeting, we will approve 2 sets of minutes. Do we have anyone taking minutes for this meeting? Just curious.
yes, we have Julie's on the line.
Okay. Yeah, and hey, Julie.
Hey, Greg.
What we want to do is to go ahead and we'll just resend both last month's meeting minutes and this month's meeting minutes out in advance of the April meeting, and we can approve both of them at that time. Next thing on the docket is the Georgia School Board Association resolution. Actually, there are 2 of them, resolutions, and I kind of made a pitch form at the policy meeting. I was totally inappropriate, but I was distracted. So hopefully everyone's had a chance to review 2 resolutions that we are proposing that the Georgia School Board Association adopt in its summer meeting. Of course, that meeting may be electronic. We don't know.
So I was just going to say, we got an email today saying that there's 3 things they're supposed to do at this delegate assembly. One is vote on the positions, which I think this is related to. One is hear the financial report, and the third is to approve nominating slate for the officers. And what they said in the email was that only the third one, the approving of officers and voting on officers, would be done remotely on June 5th. The others would be moved until later in the season, probably September. But I don't
Okay.
think that changes the deadlines, because we do still have this April 17th deadline, correct?
Right, that's correct.
Okay, so we should carry on, but it
Right.
won't actually happen on June 5th as planned.
Boy, that's planning ahead. So hopefully, we'll
Well,
be
they've
able to leave
canceled
our,
they've canceled the whole meeting in person. But go ahead, sorry.
gosh, no, I'm getting stir crazy because with a compromised patient here, I can't leave the house and haven't and won't. But
Yeah.
I may just start growing a beard and see how long it can get until I'm out of here.
My
But
husband is
anyway,
doing
huh?
that. My husband is
Yeah.
already doing that.
Okay, the first, and let me just give a little backdrop. John's aware of this, but Antoine and Patricia may not. At last year about this time, we had a number of resolutions that we introduced to the Georgia School Board Association for adoption. I think we had 6, 2 of which were adopted. One of them, I'm trying to think. One of them, and be honest with you, I forgot which 2 were adopted, but I did review them, and 2 of them were adopted. Do you remember offhand, John? Oh, Mike.
You're muted.
Can't hear you.
Maybe he doesn't remember.
John? You don't remember? Okay. But you're muted. Remember, you're muted, so we can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Off the top of my head, I don't remember. Apologies.
Okay. But anyway, these 2 were not accepted at the time. One of them did create a good point of discussion, and that's the second one we're going to cover, and that's on the undocumented. And so I will mention that next time. I mean, just a few minutes. The one on the teacher retirement system was one that did not pass. I can't remember the discussion on it. I don't think there was much discussion. It came about because there were senators who in the state legislature who were pushing for a 2-tier contribution for TRS. In other words, they were attempting to kind of move away from the TRS system, which is a defined benefit, and they wanted to follow what the University Board of Regents did, I think in the early 2000s, where they gave employees an option whether or not to continue with the Board of Regents defined pension plan or whether to go to a undefined one using a 401k or 403b. I get those 2 confused. One is for corporate and one is for nonprofit. But,
So that's what you mean by 2-tier is
Right.
the defined benefits and the defined contribution,
right.
like we do at the UGA. So UGA faculty and staff have a choice to do that. Is that that's what you're referring
Right.
to?
Right.
Okay. And you're
And so-
voting, are you saying we should not do that?
Right.
So Mike, can we talk about this or should I let
Sure.
you finish?
No, let's talk.
So your justification is 44% of new teachers hired by Georgia leave the profession. So if I'm a congressman or a senator trying to save money, that's good news because that means they're paying in and they're leaving before they're vested.
Right.
So that's not a motivation for them. In fact, if you're going to argue that, you should argue for the 2-tier system so that the people that leave early have some money in the ORP, which is they don't have to be vested to take their money with them. So for me as a postdoctoral fellow, I had a retirement account for 1 year from my postdoc, and I still have that money. It didn't go away because I didn't stay with that postdoc for 10 years. So at UGA, at least the vesting time period is 10 years. I assume that's the same for the teachers.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you're a teacher that leaves after 5 years, you would actually prefer to have the defined contribution program, because then you get to take it with you.
Yeah, I guess in terms of leaving the profession, of course, we're talking about, maybe I should have clarified it. Well, I take that back. Is this a Georgia school systems? Well, okay, more discussion.
Yeah.
Don, what do you think?
I think that Tish makes a good point. That isn't really the argument you want to make. So what are some other arguments?
Well, I would say another one is that it weakens the TRS system. I mean, if you have X number of people drawing into it, and yet every year fewer people are feeding into it,
Right.
it would seem like that it would weaken it over time. But I haven't done the math on that.
Yeah.
I hear Linda. Is that Linda?
Hi there.
Hey, Linda.
Hi there. Okay, that's enough of my vision. I'm going to take that video off.
Okay.
Linda, what we're talking
mute.
about is the resolution, the proposal for GSBA to not go to a two-tier TRS employee contribution, you know, and just stick with a strictly defined benefit. Patricia was raising the point that new teachers may prefer to be able to withdraw their money if they stay less than 10 years in the state,
Right.
and take it elsewhere.
Or in the system.
And then John suggested, what other reasons would we have to have such a point in terms of legislative position? And yeah, I was talking about the stability of the TRS itself in terms of making
Right.
sure that enough money or enough people are contributing in to pay out. Because right now we have a very healthy TRS system.
Well, we did before the stocks went down, but
Well, yeah. Well, it's gonna be over by Easter.
oh, okay.
Oh,
Stop
next
that.
week? You mean next week Easter or next
Yeah,
year?
yeah.
Next
Okay.
year, Easter, next year. Antoine, do you have a comment? You lit up for a minute.
Dr. Thomas, you're willing, you know, you're in this thing too, and Lawrence, you are too. I mean, anybody can weigh in on this discussion. If the two of you have something to.
Can you do a brief overview of what the proposed change is?
Yeah.
What it would do is right now, GSBA says that they don't want high risks investments in TRS,
Right.
which we want to leave. I mean, that's a no-brainer. However, there's talk within the state legislature, or there has been in the past, to create a TRS system whereby if you want to remain in TRS, you can do so. You know, you can decide at the point of employment, I want to be a TRS employee. Or you can say, I don't want that. I'd rather the state put into a personal retirement account for me. And I can either take that money with me, or I can, you know, and invest it somewhere else, or I can invest it now or take my investment somewhere else, but I'm in charge of that money. And so I can put it into the stock market, and then whenever I become retirement age, then I can begin to withdraw it based on how long my lifespan will be. And that amount would be varied from year to year, depending on if the stocks go up or the stocks go down.
So
So
that's
let me,
similar to what I had when I was in Oconee, except they did that in lieu of Social Security.
Yes,
So we had TRS. I know, Dr. Yeager, but right, but they don't pay into Social Security in Oconee.
right.
And so they take that percentage that normally would have gone into Social Security and they require the employee do it, and the employer matches it into a 403B, and then it was transportable when I came back to Clarke.
Right.
so is this the issue that we've had speakers come before the board and talk about not eliminating the option for TRS? Is this something different from that, or is that what this is?
No, that I mean, even though you are contributing to TRS and everyone, all our employees who are eligible, I'm trying to think who's not eligible for TRS. I don't know if the bus drivers are included. Do you know, Dr. Thomas?
I'm not sure. I know there's one group that's not, and I can never remember.
Yeah, I can't.
Bus drivers, custodians are, I think, but not bus
Right.
drivers, I think.
So
I'm not sure about that one. I thought it was, okay, we've got salaried and classified, right?
Right.
right,
And so the classified would be the bus drivers and the non-educational people, right?
Right.
I thought they were not eligible for TRS, and
Now,
Most
some
of
of your
them are.
classified are still get TRS.
some
Yeah,
can
most-
pay into it. Okay,
and in fact it's
Maybe it's-
mandated.
by hours worked or something. I'm not sure.
But anyway, what Linda, what's been coming up at our school board meetings are different companies that will take extra money, not TRS money, but extra contributions that an employee, and not the school system, but an employee will put into a investment package for their retirement. And that insurance company helps them, or that agency that company helps them invest that money. And then it's an extra benefit
So when you
above and
say,
beyond.
so they would have, for those people that are coming before us saying, don't eliminate my company from allowing people to invest in it.
Right.
Because we manage your savings plans, right? Your retirement plan. This has nothing to do with getting us down to one or two providers for those investments, right?
It may, and I don't know what Human Resources is doing. I know that that's what Charles is upset about. But what Human Resources is saying is that if you've got 15 different companies that are taking employee contributions from Clarke County School District, it's like it's almost a free for all, and you may not be able to get the benefit of size, versus if you have a couple that Human Resources deems as the most beneficial for the employees because of the extra management charges and management fees, because some of these companies can have pretty high management fees.
Yeah.
So that's
Then-
a separate issue. Could we
That is
stay
a
on
separate
focused
issue.
on the main issue, which is whether
Okay.
we support staying with just TRS as the mandated
Okay,
retirement system, or if you want to discourage going to the ORP. But if you're going to discourage going to the defined contribution plans, then you should say something along the lines of the TRS encourages people to stay in the district or in the system for 10 years to be vested. So that's actually a good thing. If you want low turnover within the system, then you want to stick with the TRS. Otherwise, people will come and go and not lose anything.
well, people do take their money out. I mean, if you're not vested, whatever you
Right.
put into the system, you can take with you. So if you work 9 years, then 9 years of your contribution, not necessarily the school district, but your
Right, it's the
contribution.
School district's contribution, right? So they're
Right.
losing those school district's contribution to their retirement, which
Right.
is huge, generally speaking.
Right. And some people take that money and then they have to find a way to buy back years
Yeah.
later when they
Yeah.
decide to go back into teaching in Georgia.
But isn't that typical? I'm sorry, isn't that typical of industry until you're vested in a company so that you get the company's match to your retirement? When you leave that company, you take your contribution with you because the company can't keep your funds. So I
Right.
don't know that matters whether it's TRS or anybody else.
No, but
And
if
we're
it's
not changing
ORP, if it's ORP or if it's whatever the defined contribution is, then you get to take the employer's contribution as well.
But that in the industry that I came from, I think in private sector, pretty much if you are not vested according to your company's agreement with whoever they negotiated that agreement, if you leave prior to being vested, you'd go and take your contribution with you. If you leave after being vested, then your contribution either stays with the company where you are, because I have a friend that's in that situation now, and she left the company 20 something years ago, but when she became retirement eligible, then that money that she left with the company became accessible to her, but only after that time. So I guess I'm just trying to understand what the resolution is trying to say. Are we saying that we want to, it's not an incentive for people to stay because by law you can't keep their money. So I'm not sure how that contributes. Now, you can leave and enter and leave the system, but you enter under whatever the conditions are now and you return under the new conditions. It's how that has worked in the company that industry I came from. So I'm
Well-
not sure what the resolution is doing.
Well,
Other
when
than
you,
what they've been saying when they came to the podium, which was don't reduce.
Linda,
the number-
that's a different
That's
issue,
different.
Linda. That's a totally different issue.
Okay, okay. Then that's what I
Yep.
don't understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's other money.
I
That's
think,
extra money.
right, if I can clarify, Mr. Davis, and please correct me, Mr. Davis, the people that are coming to the podium to speak are people whose company, through the vetting process with human resources, their companies have been determined not to be of
Okay,
the most appropriate or acceptable risk level for our staff members. That some of those companies, the fees are astronomical, change fees are very high. So HR vetted all of those companies that come through and pared them down to those that they determined by a set criteria were most economically feasible for our staff. What Mr. Davis is talking about with this resolution is that right now we only offer teachers' retirement system for faculty and staff as a retirement option. The proposal, it seems to be, is that people could, in lieu of doing teachers' retirement, could do another retirement, like annuity-based option. Is that right?
Yes.
So right now we don't have that option in Georgia. You could do TRS and an annuity, but it seems like this is saying you could do TRS or an annuity. Did I capture that?
Yeah, except you can also still deal with your 401s and stuff. You could still, basically you can have two annuities.
I mean,
One-
anybody can put any money they want into anything they want. What we're talking about is what the state of Georgia puts into an account for you, right? I mean, you can always spend, take your own money and put it anywhere you want, but it's what the state is doing with your investment, with your retirement funds. And right now they're putting it into TRS. And then your benefits are defined, meaning they give you a pension or whatever they call it, according to your salary. If you go to a defined contribution plan, which is what I have, because unfortunately I chose the ORP when I came to UGA, it means that your defined contribution, the university is putting a certain amount of money into an account for me, and then they're putting it in the stock market, or you're getting to choose where they put it, but you're putting it into something that is not a defined benefit. It's a defined contribution, which
Right.
means you don't get to control what happens to it. It's at the mercy of the stock market. It is not an optimal situation for most people unless you think you're going to leave before you vest, which is when you have to go up for tenure. Everybody worries about not getting tenure. And so most of the junior faculty at UGA are choosing to go into this ORP to their demise because they're not getting the defined benefits. They're just getting a stock market account.
Yeah, there's no guarantee. In other words, because the defined benefit means that as long as you put your years in, you will get a certain amount based on your salary. I'm in TRS. Pam and I are, and that was probably one of the best decisions we made when we came here. So that's the difference. If the stock market does well and doesn't crash, then ORP is good. But if you're thinking of this as a pension where there's a guarantee at the end, that's where TRS is better.
And if you're trying to get your faculty to stay, you want to stay with the TRS. You don't
think
want to
so.
go to an ORP.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I thought Patricia, I thought you were arguing against keeping it like it is, or at least, or were you just
I'm
looking
saying
at
that your
side?
explanation
Oh, the
for why
explanation.
is completely backwards.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, I agree with
Okay.
the sentence that it is not the time to make the job less attractive,
Right.
but the other two sentences don't make any sense according to what I know about the second tier.
Could you help reword that rationale?
Okay.
Greg, do you know if with the system that the state's proposing as an alternative to TRS for K-12 teachers, would it be the same ORP plan that UGA has with the immediate vesting of both employer and employee contributions?
From what my understanding is that, and again, this pony hasn't quite left the barn yet. It was being talked about by Tippins and a few other folks in the state legislature, and they were advertising it as a cost-saving method for the state, but it would still require the state to put in X number of dollars or percentage, and so would the employee, but that it would not be when you came to draw it out, it would not be a set amount. It would just depend on what as John said, what the stock market was doing at any given time, and it would fluctuate year by year based on if the stock market is up, you would pull more dollars out based on your longevity, or you would pull less dollars out if the stock market was down. But yes, it's the same model that the Board of Regents adopted.
Okay, because I was wondering that the immediate vesting of employer contributions, that is a feature of UGA's ORP, but it's very unusual. Linda's right that you don't typically see that in the private sector. So I was just trying to get clear on that.
Yeah.
So does that mean that if you leave the university system, you get the employer contribution and your own contribution?
Yeah.
And take it with you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm hearing, if you want me to rewrite this, I'm hearing three things. I'm hearing that, let me read you said the rationale would be, first of all, it would reduce switching to this new program would reduce the stability of the TRS system by decreasing the number of contributors, right?
Right.
The second one is my argument, which is that you're removing an incentive to stay in the Georgia system.
Right.
And then the third piece would be something about making Georgia schools less attractive to good teachers by making their retirement program a defined contribution rather than a defined benefit. Something like that.
Yeah, I think the
But
third.
the less attractive to good teachers is the point
Right.
you made, not the time to make the job less attractive, right?
Right.
Okay. And we just have to figure out why this would make it less attractive.
Well,
Or does
Any,
it?
What do we mean by good teachers? I'm not sure how we characterize that. As opposed to
Experienced
bad.
teachers.
I don't know. I'm just trying to understand what you meant by that. Okay.
I'm trying to, in the original draft, he says this is not the time to make employment in public education less attractive. So we could just use that sentence, but we have to say why giving a second option makes it less attractive, or that it simply does.
If you're doing a lawyer's job, you take the position as a given and then try to figure out why it's right.
Exactly.
Mhm. I was
Okay.
thinking that too, that you want to attract those who are committed as like lifetime educators or something to that effect, or career educators. And in doing so, our goal is to attract employees who are long-term committed to this work, and thereby the availability of a defined benefits plan guarantees them financial security after they have given so much of themselves to the field.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Sure.
Sounds great.
Well, and more generally, it used to be that a lot of jobs had pensions, and now very few do. And those that do are more attractive, because if you stay in the system, then you know that you have a retirement. You don't have to worry about the stock market every day. And so that has peace of mind and job security.
Right.
Patricia, I think,
Yes.
Trish, while you're rewording, I'm not so sure. The more I look at what the actual proposal says in terms of the language,
Yeah.
I'm not so sure if that's worded very clearly. Because you had questions right out of the gate, and the more I look at it, the more questions I have, because I don't know if saying 2-tier TRS employee contribution rate, I don't know if that explains, if that's self-explanatory.
And it's not, I didn't understand. I thought it meant you had like different levels of teachers that had different
Right.
levels of contribution. That's what I understood that to mean. So that's
Would
not what you
would-
mean, obviously.
Would you mind working on that too?
Okay.
That one sentence, because the more I stare at it, the more I don't like it.
All right. I'll do my best. Would you want me to
Sure. I think if we can go ahead and support the if the government relations committee can go ahead and support the concept of what we're saying, and allow the actual, if we can vote on that and the actual wording, we can discuss it at Thursday's meeting.
Okay. I'll
Tawana?
reword it and send it out right away so we all have it.
Okay. Tawana, do you have anything you want to add?
She's muted.
Okay.
There she is.
No, I'm sorry. I'm doing double. I tutor on Monday, so I'm sorry.
Oh my God, you're double
Yeah, go ahead.
dipping.
I'm listening. I'm here to
Okay. Okay. So do we have a motion to accept the intent of this proposal for the GSBA, and with the actual wording to be voted on at the board meeting? Do we have I mean, I guess I can, Mike, I guess I can introduce it, right?
Yep.
Yes, sir. You can introduce it under your committee report.
So I introduce it. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Patricia seconds it. Okay, are there any discussion? Linda, do you have other questions that you want to address about that particular, what we've been talking about that didn't get out?
I did just read the email that said GSBA has been canceled for the June session. So when was this going to somebody?
It's got to be voted on this Thursday so that it can be loaded up to the GSBA website by the 17th. They haven't changed that date.
Okay.
But it won't be voted on until much later, September or something like that.
I just want to make sure that we can explain this, because thank you so much for that discussion. It does help clarify for me. I do now better understand what the people at the podium have been talking about versus this change from going to a guaranteed retirement to take your best shot on the stock market. All right, I got it.
Okay.
Actually, one more piece of discussion. There are kind of two things maybe in this. One of the first sentence says, GSBA opposes legislation about adopting high-risk investments. Okay, even if it stays as a defined benefit pension, traditional pension thing, if they put all the money in a bunch of hedge funds that go under, then we could wake up one morning and everybody's pension is gone. So that's actually a distinct argument from the second sentence, just so we're clear on that. It's not predicated on the two-tier thing.
Yeah, that first sentence is already part of the.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's all part, and so.
Okay.
I just it's just been piggybacked onto.
Okay. Thank you.
So do we need
Okay.
to include that first sentence in our?
Well, what it does, the way that they've asked us to, it says exactly where you underline and bold what you're adding into the policy.
I see.
Got it.
All right.
So that first sentence was already there.
It's already there.
So we've
Okay.
tacked on it.
I got it. I got it.
Now
I
the
got it.
second discussion is brand new, and so that's why it's not added on.
I see.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, so let's go ahead and come to a vote. All those that support introducing this, voting on this on Thursday, and if it passes, well, that's what we're doing. Is we're voting to have
Take it
this
forward.
voted on Thursday by the entire board.
Okay. I'll do my best to.
All
put the
those in
words down.
favor, you want to give a hand? Okay. We've got three. Is Antoine here? Did we lose him?
He's still there on the phone.
His number's still there.
Okay.
Mr. Stevens?
Okay. Well, we got the support. Let's
you
go
hear me
ahead.
now?
Oh,
Yes.
I'm sorry. Mr. Stevens?
Okay, yes. Sorry about that. I
Okay.
had my
Do
phone on mute.
we have your support?
Yeah.
Okay, the second proposal that we want to, at least, I would like that we, as a board, supported last year, and I'm suggesting that we support it again. Talks about GSBA urges the state to allow undocumented immigrant children who successfully complete K-12 education in the state of Georgia to pay in-state tuition to any public university, college, or technical school. As a backdrop, it was nice to know that there were 3 bills that were introduced in the House to do this very thing. One of them was, 2 of them were introduced by Democratic legislators, and one was introduced by a Republican legislator. And the only differences were how far back a student could do that from high school graduation. The Republican proposal said no more than 2 years you would have to apply if you wanted to pay in-state tuition. And I double checked the facts about this, and they're actually from last year to this year, there were like 2 additional state board of regents systems, 2 states who added something similar to what we're proposing that the Georgia School Board Association adopt as a platform. So anyway, that one is kind of up for discussion.
Can we itemize the states that you're talking about? Do we have a list of the states?
Sure.
I think
That
that
can be
would
done.
strengthen it, because if it's California and Vermont and a few other choice crazy left-wing liberal places, then we may or may not have any weight. But if it's places like Texas or, you know, which states make a difference in this current climate?
Okay, I can certainly do that, make that change.
I also was a little confused reading the wording. You said Florida and 16 other states have passed statewide in-state tuition legislation for undocumented immigrants, and 5 state university systems have adopted in-state tuition policies. So do those sentences have to be in one mouthful, or are there 2 ideas there? Because one's a policy and one's a state legislation.
They can be separated into 2. I can do that. 2 different sentences. And I would have to if I'm going to list
And
all
why
the
would,
states.
yeah, and why would 16 states have legislation, but only 5 systems adopt policies? Why not 16?
Yeah, what I was trying to get at is that 16 states, the state legislature has dictated you will only charge in-state tuition. In the
Okay.
other 5 states, it's the university systems, like the Board of Regents, had the
Oh.
power to do it on their own.
Oh, I see. So it's in addition to, not within the umbrella
Right.
of. Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, we
So
definitely
there's
want to
20
clarify that. So it's actually 17 plus 5. We have 22
Right,
places where you have in-state tuition.
right.
Okay. Yeah,
And,
that could
and
be
I'm
cleaned
sure
up.
that the language is different and the qualification. I mean, I'm sure there's differences, but I will tease that out. And just so you know, with the rationale is for the adoption of the policy. Once it becomes part of the policy, then all the rationale is dropped. So the state legislature never sees the rationale. They just,
Oh, I see. But you're still trying to convince everybody else to put it on
Right.
there, right?
right.
Yeah, so I think at the moment, it's not clear that it's additive, that it's
Okay.
actually 22 states have this.
Okay,
And I guess if you list them, even if you just abbreviate them, that would make
Sure.
it clear.
sure.
I'll use the word additional. Additionally, 5 state universities have adopted.
I can do that.
Yeah. And I guess the second sentence, I might flip it on its head and say Georgia needs trained workforce, and this is a significant contribution to that workforce or something, rather than the students afforded the, I mean, it feels like it's a little bit weak at the front and strong at the end. John, what do you think? You're a wordsmither.
Yeah, but if we're talking to legislators, then I guess the argument I might make is that these kids we know are going out of state to other schools that are willing to teach undocumented students, and that increases the chances that they won't come back and be, you know, productive members of society. Now, maybe that's what the legislature wants, but that doesn't seem like a great idea. And
Well,
so maybe that's one angle.
What the challenge of that, John, is that really very few of these students are actually able to, I mean, if they go to, let's say if they go to Florida, they're gonna have to pay out-of-state tuition.
Well,
because-
there are schools that provide scholarships. I mean,
Right.
I know Christian Brothers and some schools in the Northeast as well. I'm sure
Right.
it's a drop in the bucket, but we do know of people that are leaving the
Sure.
state as a result.
Sure. No, I mean, that's what you lead has done.
Yep.
They've sent people to Princeton and things like that. It's just that
Yep.
to really have a big net.
Right.
The students that we're talking about that we graduate out of Clarke County, most of them,
Yep.
you know, could do college, but they may not be able to get into a private college with a scholarship.
Right.
And going to Florida wouldn't improve their economics at all either, because they would pay out of state there as well. But I can,
Yeah.
I mean, if y'all
I'll
want
be up
me
as soon as I
to,
can.
if y'all want me to do to change that second sentence, I can do so as well.
just think it would be stronger flipped, that Georgia needs Georgia has a high need for trained workforce, and we don't want to lose quality students.
Okay. I will reword that one as well. Other discussions about the concept of it? Juana, Linda, anyone?
No, I'm very happy with that concept. The thing that just caught my attention is when you read that caveat about 2 years or something. So are we going to hold these students to a different criteria than we hold
No,
everybody else? Okay.
hopefully not. But the state legislature could agree with us and yet still put a time limit on it. We couldn't. We can argue against it.
Yeah,
But we're
I
not-
want us to use some very strong language that would insist that this be parity for, that they not be treated differently.
Right, right.
I would also hope that following something like this, following a change such as this would then hopefully phase 2 would then be a change in the funding model, because access to the campus is one thing, but access to actually being able to pay to attend the campus is kind of the second.
And we have, I mean, the thing is that I will say that last year when this went before the committee that vets these proposals, we had a good discussion on this, and it actually, this would be our 3rd year trying to raise it. And in the third, and last year we had like, it was about 40% of the people who supported it at this meeting of, other school boards. So, and so we got some favorable support, and it also got carried on to the convention too. I think that if I remember correctly, maybe there was a year before. I can't remember, because I think Oviedo was the one that was telling me. But anyway.
Can we try to put some numbers? I don't know, maybe I'm too number focused, but some numbers. Thank you, John.
That's okay. I agree.
Some heft behind this, like how many kids are we talking about?
Okay.
How many dollars are we talking about? What's I mean, I know you lead, and I know other states have done this work, so it's not like we have to invent the wheel. That would help justify the value of doing this, because it's not just doing it out of the kindness of our heart, although that's a good reason, but it's because economically we are losing out, I think, is the case you make to the legislature and even to the other school boards. I don't know whether Athens is uniquely situated in this situation or whether it's statewide issue, but I don't know. It seems like a little numbers would help. Some data.
We can certainly document how many students could be affected by this.
Yeah. And what their economic
based on our
impact is.
graduation, are you based on our
Yes.
graduation rate? Okay.
Yeah, for the state. I'm sure we can find out how many of those students are undocumented, i.e. dreamers that are unable to even think about college. And I think I don't know if we could know exactly how many kids would qualify or be admitted if we didn't have the policy, but we can certainly talk about the percentage of the numbers of students that could be affected if the state legislature allowed this,
Yeah, so we'll still talking about potential students, which is, I think that's a great number, whatever number you come up with. If whatever it is, we can't argue with it. That's the best we can do.
Right. With no more discussion, I'd like to go ahead and introduce this one to be supported today, and then push forward for Thursday, with the caveat that I will alter the rationale, ways that it was discussed.
Okay. So move. Second.
Second. All those in favor? Let me get my hand up here. Okay. Aye.
Okay.
Okay. I did talk last, I invited our Senator Bill Calzert to attend this meeting. Now, Bill Calzert is one of the two senators that represent our district, and I specifically picked him because of his leadership role in the state legislature. He's fairly high up. In fact, I think he was like third in command. I think it was majority leader, if I remember right. But he had to step down when Governor Kemp, which I believe is his brother-in-law, became elected. So anyway, I reached out to him, and I was kind of surprised. They're really on hold.
Yeah.
So I was thinking that there was more going on behind the scenes than there actually are. They were 11 days from ending the session. And so they had already gone through crossover, which is when the House sends theirs to the Senate and the Senate sends theirs to the House. And supposedly, if it's not crossed over, then it's dead. And they were 11 days from reaching their 40 total. They had voted a supplemental budget that will make up whatever shortfalls there were in the 2019, 2020 budget, but they have not passed a 20 to 21 budget. And they don't even have estimates. You know, we were estimating at one of our meetings about what our shortfall would be with the SPLOS. Well, Senator Calzert couldn't even present any numbers like that. So, you know, I mean, he couldn't make it because to this meeting because he had a deposition to do, but it didn't seem like there was much to add.
Right.
So there was no sense talking about any bills or anything. So it seemed like that legislature will end up, I mean, they have to come together and vote by July 1. And so, and they may not have the freedom to do it online the way we're doing it. So that's, I think, still in the courts or being worked out. John, you have anything to add to that you've heard?
I think that's about right. I haven't heard a lot, but I think that's right.
Anybody else have? So talking about individual bills was kind of senseless.
I don't think they're going to get that done.
And so based on our experience in the past, it's probably a good thing, I guess, that there's no particular bills that, you know, because they certainly wanted to increase the scholarship funding for, you know, not just special education students, but also those with a 504, which really would have not been a good move, in my opinion. And that was probably the most serious piece of legislation that wasn't in consideration. So I hope that doesn't get moved to the table for passage. Okay, any other discussions? Then we're going to turn it over to Lawrence. He's our point person as to the collaboration with the county commission. And
Lawrence, can I jump in, Mr. Davis, for 1 second?
yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Also, I spoke with Mr. Davis Saturday, I think it was, and he had some email conversation with Mr. Calzert. And there had been some concerns expressed about some schools, they didn't
Oh,
name.
yeah. Yes.
About some schools ordering principals and teachers to help with serving meals to families. And we still don't know if that was us, but we know that's been in direct contradiction to anything we had done thus far. Mr. Davis and I talked about me compiling a document. I did start something I just shared it today with Mr. Harris. There were some questions about districts not preparing people, not formally educating people. But the document that Mr. Harris compiled before we ever started is very thorough. And I shared with you all last week, his team also meets every day to review what's been done and to make improvements literally every day. They have a briefing, I think at like 1 o'clock, to look at what was done. But we are preparing a document. Mr. Davis, I decided I'm just going to share that document with the board, and then you all share that out with whomever as
Okay.
individuals you feel is appropriate. Because the more I thought about it, I'm like, you know what? We really don't answer to the legislators. Now, our obligation is legal, and we are following every legal mandate that is out there in terms of social distancing, taking temperatures, using masks, using gloves. But at the end of the day, we don't report to them. And so I started having a few concerns about that. And then I started also thinking, this is probably one of those cases, even if it were Clarke, that's like many other things, that someone literally call up a legislator, which is very concerning to me, to say, I want to complain because my school is asking me to serve breakfast, or is it a friend of a legislator who's over for dinner and it comes up, and I can't believe they have the nerve to ask us. You know, if people are calling their legislatures because we're trying to feed children, that just took me to a very bad place in terms of my feelings about all the good work that's happening. So I want to believe even whatever he heard was just due to personal relationships and connections. But if it's about Clarke County, it wasn't accurate. I do want the board to know that we are asking every school beginning this week to take 1 day out of the next 20, however many days that we have to feed. But if schools don't help do it, I'm not really sure who they expect to help do it. And even in asking schools to help, we are being very lenient in terms of, like, if Mr. Davis worked for the district and we know he has a son at home who is vulnerable at this time, we would never expect him to come. If we have a staff member at home who's caring for an aging parent or a sick child, or if that staff member is over a certain age or has asthma or whatever, they're not expected to come. But if you're able and well, we are asking for help, because there's no way we can distribute that number of meals without help. I still don't know who they expect to do it, unless they just want us to stop feeding children. I couldn't figure that out with Mr. Cowsert's concerns expressed to you, like who is the designated person that's supposed to take care of these kids? We know who's supposed to take care of their instructional needs, but we can't expect our cafeteria staff to be able to feed that many kids alone without some assistance. So we're getting that document together. It'll come to the entire board along with the handbook that Mr. Harris created, along with adjustments that we've made along the way. And you'll have that by tomorrow midday, Mr. Davis. And then all of you can
Thank you.
around deem necessary.
Yeah, let me read that email because I read it to Dr. Thomas, and I just wanted, and again, I would much rather, and I did express appreciation that Senator Cowser shared that information with me so we could do our, what I will do is send it to him as soon as I get it, just to be, proactive and to kind of, for lack of a better word, just nip it in the bud, so to speak. But here's what Senator Cowser wrote to me. This was as we were trying to set up him attending this meeting, and if not, then to at least talk with me over the weekend about what the state legislature is or is not doing. It says, I have received a couple of complaints from teachers or administrators who are being ordered to participate in free lunch distribution and asked to interact with parents and kids during this sheltering in place without any training in healthcare. They are fearful for their safety. Is this mandatory? And is it allowed by local ordinance and statewide executive order? So that's what he wrote. And, you know, and that's what I read to Dr. Thomas. And I do appreciate that we will respond, not just to him, but just kind of whomever in the community has questions along these lines. But like Dr. Thomas said, it's not clear that it's talking to us. So, but anyway.
Courtesy of our 10 years ago state legislature, Mr. Cowser's district is quite large and quite expansive over many, many school districts. So I think it's fair to say we should send him what we've done, but I would doubt that he was be talking about us.
Yep. Very, very possibly.
Athens Clarke Unified Government actually was very pleased with the model that Mr. Harris created, to the point that they asked to collaborate with us and utilize the model to help get out additional resources that they wanted to put to families, because the way we had done it had been done so well. And I'm including that in my document. Thank you, Dr. Knox. So Mr. Harris, well done. When they're calling us saying, you've got it figured out, we don't need to figure it out, can we just partner with what you've done? Then we have their blessings. And Kelly Gertz has called directly. So I'm putting all of that in that communication.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mr. Harris, your turn.
No, I want to make sure before you move on, I just want to make sure that anybody else has any questions for any more discussion about that subject. And thank you for raising that. I had totally forgotten about, you know, I knew what you were going to be doing. And so, but I would be very happy to, as chair of the Government Relations Committee, forwarding whatever you provide me to all of our state legislators who represent Clarke County.
I wonder if Senator Cowser had actually thought about contacting Dr. Thomas or being more explicit in that, because that's a very hard statement, I think, given what we've done. And I think it's difficult to defend ourselves when we're not even sure that was coming at us.
But we're really not defending ourselves. I think we're just putting out what we've done. I didn't see Dr. Thomas as being defensive on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And well, again, we are defending a position or trying to answer a complaint. And I kept thinking, gee, I wish he had called her to begin with, and then we wouldn't have had this whole conversation come up probably. But again, I would love to know if that is somebody in our district that's making that kind of statement, because they definitely didn't take that to the right person.
I had a hard time Saturday. I brought myself down now. It was tough for me Saturday because I kept thinking, if it is us, I just had a lot of issues with it, but I'm in a better emotional place today.
I'm grateful for that. And I'd love to not have to keep adding anxiety to the position. So yeah, let's send them to the source, or at least nail them on what they're talking about or where they got that from, and send those people to the right source.
Yeah, his district includes Loganville, Walnut Grove, between Walton, Monroe.
It's huge.
It's large. Good Hope. Yeah, it's huge. So it could be anybody.
But also,
he may not know because they call the office and it gets written down, but maybe they don't say who they are.
Well, I just want to point out that I mean, I had someone a couple of months back, one of our, you know, in my estimation, one of our most experienced principals who has done an excellent job. I had someone who works for that principal say something negative, and I'm saying, you just can't please everyone. I mean, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't, that's why I guess it didn't affect me as much, because out of our thousands and thousands of employees, how many employees do we have, Dr. Thomas?
About 2,200.
2,200. I mean, for one person or two people, he said a couple of complaints. I would be surprised if there's not a couple of two complaints out of 2,200. But I understand, Dr. Thomas, how you feel.
Yeah, that's a lot of work to have to, again, to even go out and have to address this, interrupting the work of actually doing the work. And so, yeah, it would be good if we can get those questions narrowed down a little bit more up front. And if it's ours, then let's do it. But if it's not, yeah, let's not even touch it.
And in answer to what you're saying, Linda, I totally agree. And you know, we've had a problem with legislators not contacting us when there are bills that affect public education. They will allow us to contact them, but they won't contact us and saying, how would this impact you? And even though we are one of the districts, one of the few districts that have a government relations committee, and we've always been, you know, active, you know, on the superintendent level, whether it's Dr. Lanou or Dr. Means, we've always been very out there in terms of the state, and yet we aren't contacted. And as always has bugged me. And but you know, so I'm not surprised that Senator Calzert or Senator Ginn or our House members have not contacted us and say, what are y'all doing? Because it's just that they don't seem to get in the habit of doing that. So that's my 2 cents.
Can we give Mr. Harris the floor?
Yep.
So I don't have much. I did try reaching out to our constituents. We are working together, as Dr. Thomas said, on trying to figure out how we can partner together to deploy resources at the meal distribution sites. But I was trying to talk with Blaine and Deborah a bit about how we can partner together moving forward to the next school board, ACC government collaboration. I mean, as you can imagine, there's a lot happening right now. So right now they're working on the resiliency package, as you all are aware. So I haven't been able to get any more follow-up information on what the next one is going to look like. I imagine that as things start to calm down a bit, they may have a bit more time to put towards trying to plan that August meeting. But as you all know, Fenwick and I, we took notes at the LEAP meeting in February. We have a list of the recommendations on topics. And I love the recommendation that came up that maybe getting together to create an agenda to have kind of some collaboration on what everyone wants to hear about. So Fenwick and I have kind of been creating kind of a process. We've been thinking about how could we do that maybe online and virtually to entertain topics from both the Board of Education and the Commission with hopes that then we can create kind of a robust agenda and have a third party person lead it. Some of the feedback from the last one was that, you know, as we were talking kind of one-on-one, was that having a non-staff member lead it, such as Dr. From UGA. That wasn't actually was August one, but there's a Sharon was her name. Was that her name, Mr. Davis? She led it, but she's also a neutral party. And so it helped to really, I think, coordinate those conversations. And I love doing it. I thought it was great, but I think having someone who doesn't really have either side party who can help collaborate that. So our goal is to get topics soon and then hopefully pull her back into it and see if she'll be willing to help coordinate the one in August. And hopefully we're back to normal by then, but if not, we will do it by video chat, I assume. But yeah,
Fantastic.
I'll keep working with them to try to see when's a good time. I try not to be too pressured, especially knowing with all that's happening in our city that, you know, I was trying to say, you know, if I could get them before our call, I'd talk it out, but I understand they're also working on some other stuff too. So by our next meeting, hopefully I can have more to share.
Comments, discussion?
Sounds great.
I am a huge proponent of facilitated meetings so that all parties that, you know, actually have a stake in it are able to stop and concentrate on, you know, getting the information that they need and not having to run the meeting too. So you'll never hear me object to a facilitated discussion.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
Well, we have completed our agenda, unless anyone has any things they want to bring forward. Hearing none, do we have a motion to adjourn? Nope, there goes
Second.
John, there goes Patricia. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Okay, goodbye, thank you.
Thank
Hope
you.
the doctor's visit goes well, Greg.
Appreciate it. Yeah, I'd like
Yeah.
to see somebody in the flesh.
Yep.
So looking forward to it.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas.
Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you all. Have a wonderful day.
Doing a great
Bye-bye.
job. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Hey,
thank
thank you, Laura.
Harold. Harold is the man behind the camera.
Thank
That's
you,
me.
Harold, for making us live.
You know how I do.
Thank you,
Thank
Lawrence.
you, Julie. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.